Hello everyone, welcome to Hindu Center of Atlanta's weekly spiritual learning program for adults. Today we are joined with Acharya Brahmadevji. Acharya is delivering a lecture on series overview of Vedic Hindu scriptures and allied texts. In that he will be covering today the Bhisma Parv of Mahabharat, which comes under the Gita. Acharya Brahmadev ji has an inclusive educational background in science, banking from University of Mauritius, management ABE UK, and Darshanacharya from Vedic philosophy, Darshan Yog Mahavidyalaya, Gujarat, and a diverse career in financial services, industry, and at Arya Sabha Mauritius. He has been a key resource person for Arya Sabha Mauritius on universal Vedic values, yoga and meditation, and on interfaith and intercultural dialogue at various national and international forums. The Mauritius Council of Religions, Arya Pratinidhi Sabha America, Greater Atlanta Vedic Temple, and Hindu Center of Atlanta Yoga and Meditation Center in Coming. He is author of numerous insightful articles on Vedic philosophy and contemporary issues in English and French. Over to Acharya.
Om Namaste. Let's sit down straight, close the eyes gently, body totally relaxed, and bring our mind to focus. 3 times Om Jap and 1 time Gayatri Mantra. Deep inhale, and while exhaling, we are doing the Om Jap and the mantra part. Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Join the palms together, rub them slowly, cover the eyes, and open the eyes gently below the palms, and transfer the energy to the facial muscles. That's one way of bringing our mind to focus. Deep inhale and exhale, and also by sitting down straight with the backbone totally vertical and with the body relaxed, because at that point in time, when we focus on our breathing exercise, we silence our mind and we silence our heart, the centers of mental activities and emotional activities respectively. We know the Mahabharat, most likely we know it for the Gita. We know the Mahabharata as the battle between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. 2 armies, one representing this side of righteousness, and the other one was on the wrong side. And it was more because of the ego and greed. When we look at the starting point of the Mahabharat, it was by not sharing the kingdom. And in the words of Duryodhan, Sui ki nok ke barabar, not even a needle point of land to be given to the Pandavas. Eventually, the battle happens. So many events during that. Last week, we looked at a glimpse of the Vidur Niti, how it leads us to be righteous in life, to better self-manage ourselves. And today we'll be looking into the Bhisma Parva. The Bhisma Parva is not a particular section of the Mahabharat, but if we look at it, it covers the period when Bhishma Pitamaha takes command of the army, when he is given the responsibility to lead the army into the battle. It covers the days of the battle till he falls down on the bed of arrows. So what's interesting about it, if it covers only 10 days of the battle, the essential part of it is that what the life of Bhishma Pitamaha teaches us. One, if you look at it, it shows the might of brahmacharya. Brahmacharya, which is defined in yoga as one, the consolidation of physical, mental, moral, and spiritual force. And this is what is said that Bhishma Pitamaha, when he was fighting in the Mahabharata, he was 250 years old, 250 years old. And he had the courage, the spirit of people even much younger than him. That is the force of brahmacharya. And brahmacharya is also learning to be ethical, learning the scriptures. It's the student phase of life, and that which reinforces the person. Brahmacharya first by self-control, self-restraint physically, that reinforces the physical aspect of the body by preserving the essential life forces, by not indulging, not only abstain from sexual relationships, but also having total self-control on all the organs of the body, the Jnanendriya and Karmendriya, the organs of perception, taste, smell, hearing, sight, and touch, and the other organs of action, the tongue for speaking, the hands, the feet, and the excretory organs of the body. So it implies total self-restraint and self-control over the body. And that reinforces the mind, making it more sharp, especially during student life and beyond. And Bhishma Parva, it's not a specific part that is defined by Maharshi Vyasa of the Mahabharata, but it has been later taken by commentaries, just isolated to be able to study the life of that person. Just look at the circumstances when he was given to take control of the army. Though he knew that the Kauravas were on the wrong side, were not on the side of Dharma, were totally wrong from inception, he had the vow that he is going to protect Bharat, the country. And Bharat was not what it is known now. Bharat was a Chakravati Rajya, That is, it was a mighty rule covering the whole of the world at that time. Though the countries were apart, but Yudhishthir, when he was crowned as emperor, he was crowned as emperor of the whole empire. Unfortunately, the splits happened, the countries drifted, and they became what is known today. Even today, the last partition of India was 72 years back. So we see the mind of people operating on division. And that has always been there in history, even in Satyug, because we always have people who come with, as we say, crooked minds or ulte buddhi, and they do like this. And the apex of the division was started with the Mahabharat and accentuated, and this is where the Kali Yuga also started. Bhisma, the life of him, when he took the vow to protect Bharat, he knew that he was leading the army and he wouldn't defeat the Pandavas. He wouldn't, though he created the havoc in the army of the Pandavas, but he never sent or gave a blow directly to the Pandavas. And during the fight, he fought only with Arjun, and he knew Arjun had the full potential to counter all the ammunitions that he was sending towards Arjun, even the worst of them. The episodes of recreation of the Mahabharata as serials, some of them are very inspiring, but some of them have gone totally on the opposite side, like over amplifying certain things, certain events. But I think the one by Raman Sagar is more close to the reality, though not exactly that, but it's closer to that. And when we see the serials there, and when we see the arrows that are fired, and the arrows break into parts, and in Vyas Mahabharat, in fact, it's a science. It's a science because we know today we can fire a bullet, and that bullet just disperses into 10 parts, 25 parts, or 100 parts. It spreads into smaller and smaller bullets. Even the bombs have the energy, the destroying energy that we refer to. One in the Ramayana is known as the Ramban, or in the Mahabharata is known as the Brahma Astra, and things like that. It's a whole science which is unfolded. But let's look at the contention of the life of Bhishma Pitamaha. One, brahmacharya, for building the physical, mental, spiritual, moral force. Second, he sided with the Kauravas because he himself says, after falling to the arrows of Arjun, when the Pandavas go to him to seek guidance, and to the question of Yudhishthiraji, he replies, I sided with them because I had lived in the kingdom, and I was faithful to them because I was committed to them. I was living on their means. He had that debt of, as we say, the debt of gratitude to them because he was eating their food. So it also tells us on the line of the yoga philosophy that we have to be careful. The first organ that we have to be careful in our body is the organ of taste. Patan ka jo rasta hai, the way to downfall is often the sense of taste. And if we see in the modern world, most of the white-collar crimes, financial scams are planned around dinners and lunches. So this is where that philosophy flowing from there still is relevant in day-to-day life of the present times. Then let's look a bit at the science unfolding in the Bhisma Parva. When he surrounds the army, he constitutes the army and plans how the army would be moving forward. It's a whole science of management. And when he was given responsibility, he led to the last moment that he could in this war. And he knew, though he was on the wrong side, he was not going to wrong the Pandavas, because eventually the Pandavas stood for the protection of Bharat, but he couldn't move directly to the other side. But that was a way of his shielding them. That was strategy in action. And strategy in action, we'll see that better. One shlok says, Sachinna Dhanva Sankrodha. It finishes with Giri Namapi Dharanim. It says, Bal Purvak Ek Shakti Haath Mili, Jo Parvaton ko bhi chor na kar dane wale thi. So that was the might of the ammunitions these people were using at that time. It can't be a simple arrow. It was mastering of energy. And if you look at even the nuclear bomb or the H bomb, these are mastery of energy, of fire, whatever we may call it. And the next shlok say, Panchadha Panchabhi Sharai. It says one ammunition which goes and splits into 5 different ammunitions, smaller ones, but that shows as modern, in modern warfare, we know there is one bullet which when fired splits into smaller and smaller bullets. We know of bombs which when it is thrown, it splits into multiple bombs, smaller bombs. And this is what happens. And this next shlok says, and the first one was Bhishma firing. The second one was Shikhandi firing. But Shikhandi's arrows didn't hurt Bhishma. It was only a break to that. The last one which Shikhandi uses, it's only after bringing Bhishma Pitamaha morally down. And after that, Arjun takes over to. Then it says, Navabhi Nishatei Sharai. So it was one ammunition which split into 9 parts. Then there's another one which says Pancha Vinshatya Kshudra Kanam Samarpayat. This one splits into 25 parts. Pancha Vinsha. It's 25. Then it goes in Shara Shateranam Twaramano Dhananjaya. Now, Arjun firing, and this ammunition splits into 100 parts. So that war shows the science in terms of military warfare, as is given in the Gandharva Ved, the Upaved on military science. And the beauty of it is that Bhishma Pitama, how is he described by Maharshi Vyas before he falls? He says, Mahoshanishadam Chaiva Yogamasyasa Viryavan Japanja Shanta Navo Dhima Kalaka Kangshi Sthito Bhavat Udhar Parakrami Evam Buddhiman Bhishma महान उपनिषदों के सारभूत योग का आश्रय ले प्रणव का जप करते हुए उत्तरायण की प्रतीक्षा में बाण शैया पर स्थित हो गए. Look at the qualification. उपनिषदों के सारभूत, that is the epitome of spiritual sciences. When the fighting was occurring, when we were describing the ammunitions, it was about this military science. When we talked about brahmacharya, it was about the physical sciences, the anatomy of the body, and the learning phase. Now when he falls, describing Upanishadon ke Sarbhut, the essence of the Upanishad, and then Yog ke Ashray. Now he is shown as someone who mastered the Yog philosophy, and he was cool. Pranav ka jap karte hue. He was doing jap, and Pranav refers to the name Om, the name of Ishwar God, the main name of Ishwar as Om. At that moment, he was in jap. Though he was in agonizing pain of the arrow shot to him by Arjun, but he was cool, he was just all calm and falling down from the chariot. And the next shlok which we see in the 28th chapter of the Mahabharat, it says, Swagatam va Mahabhaga, Swagatam vo Maharatha. He's fallen now. When the Pandavas are coming to see him fallen, he greets them. Mahabhaga Nareshgan, O all blessed, all energetic rulers, you are welcome. आप लोग के दर्शनों से बहुत संतुष्ट हूं. In Sanskrit it says, Tushyami darshana chaham yushma kama marompama. Santusht, santosh. This is another part of yam niyam. Be content with whatever happens in life. If we remain content, we'll be able to keep our calm. And if we keep our calm, we are able to be content. And he realizes he's fallen now. There's nobody to be able to lead that army as he would have been. The Mahabharat is soon going to end. And he knows that the Pandavas will emerge as victors. That's why he welcomes them as Mahabhaga Nareshkan, blessed and energetic rulers. But then he realizes that the havoc that the war would bring. When the Kauravas joined the Pandavas to take stock of the situation, then he says, Pashya dhvam sushadhanam me pandavenabhi sandhitam shishye hamasyam shayam yadavatam ravi. And then parikha kanyata mamavasadane nrepa upara madhvam sangramad vaira sutasrijya parthiva. It says he's lying on the deathbed, and Arjun has already shot the arrows to give him the place where his head won't be holding off the body, but his head would be on rest. Then he tells them, अब आप लोग आपस के वैर छोड़ कर युद्ध से विरक्त हो जाओ. Let down whatever hatred you may have for each other, and please give a pause to that war. But unfortunately, Duryodhana again, on his, as we say, strong-headedness or head-born, insists to go to the war, and Duryodhana even knows that he's going to lose the war, but he insists because of his ego. And that's the operation of the yoga philosophy in between the different characteristics. We show when people go according to yoga, even in the dire of circumstances, they are cool, they are, as we say, shant, peaceful. But those who run on ego, then they're going to bear the fate of that. And the Bhisma Parva, the interesting, just give me 1 minute, please. The interesting part of it is that when he falls and Yudhishthir and the other brothers among the Pandavas go to him to check and ask, put the questions to him, because Bhishma was preaching all that is good in life to them. The question rose by Yudhishthir was, Archri, as he was called, why are you now preaching the good things, ethics? Why are you teaching the ethics, but then why are you teaching the ethics now, and why couldn't you stop the war? Then he says, it's because of the food that he was taking. That food has gone into his body, run into his bloodstream, affected him, and that's why he couldn't use, even he knew they were wrong, he couldn't stop that. He couldn't even stop the disrobing of Draupadi. So that gives us the hint. That's why the Bhishma Parva is very important. It answers, it gives the answers to things happening in present day world. But it also, it requires at least a general knowledge of the various events in the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is about not only war, not only about physical building, mental building, moral building. It also shows about the science. If the military science was that advanced, just imagine. The Second World War was probably the era where we had the most inventions and creations in our modern times. The dire situations arising, especially out of war or pandemic, just like presently we have the pandemic of COVID-19, just see how one way the internet and social gatherings on Zoom, on Google Meet, and on the other platforms have just sprung here and there, connecting people, though not physically, but at least we can see people, we can see their body language. We have so many things that we can share, even if we can't meet physically. Look at the swiftness that vaccine was developed. And in that time, if we had that advanced military science, we can just imagine what was the other inventions carried forward. Like just sitting, imagine. It's often referred when Sanjay is describing what happens in the battlefield. It's just like the drones that we have today. taking stock of the situation and reporting live. And we saw that when US attacked Iraq and Afghanistan. Things were being given live reporting. So there is some comparison, though we don't have the records, we don't have the archives. Archaeology has not gone deep into that. But if we delve deep into what Maharshi Vyasa has described in the Mahabharat, we do some contemplation and some thoughtful, realistic analysis, we can conclude that was really a period where science was dominating, where the rule of economics was not only for profit making, but the rule of economics was social welfare at the same time, increasing the economic benefits in society, but also it was a just distribution and equitable distribution of wealth. And it shows when people are skewed, some want the whole of it and they don't want to share, the end result is the war of the Mahabharat. It shows ethics in action, but also wrongdoings in action. The Bhagavad Gita itself is a whole philosophy, teaching other things, so many things about life, but still it requires more than a lifetime to delve into the details. If we look at the Gita itself, it's not an episode of the Mahabharata, which is totally, as we say, an abstracted episode. It required the awakening of the soul of Arjuna. And that's the teaching of the Gita. It applies, the teachings are also valid in the world of today. And likewise, the Bhisma Parva, the life of Bhisma Pitamaha, teaches us so many things. He's a broker of peace even at the time when he's fallen on the bed of arrows. He still tells the Pandavas and the Kauravas, make peace, because war is going to end in havoc. So just see the impact of that. The last recourse, obviously, is war. And look at the occurrences throughout the world today. It's just because of misconceptions or wrong understanding of the situation. Like we see the flaring up of COVID is because people have not gone on the social distancing or respecting the health guidelines. This has flared up. So it shows that when we neglect true knowledge, or when we don't follow the guidelines of people who are involved in research, then we are going to pay high price for that. And if we look at the life of Bhishma Pitamaha, there's one thing which is important. That's why Uttarayan also has a big bearing. He waits till Uttarayan, that is the movement of the sun towards the southern hemisphere to reverse back towards the northern hemisphere to leave this mortal frame. Uttarayan is the time when the light hours, the daylight hours start to increase in the northern hemisphere. And India being in the northern hemisphere, Kurukshetra being in the northern hemisphere, that is considered an auspicious time because the effect of the sun at that point in time, it has a better sanitizing effect on the environment in the northern hemisphere. The rays of the sun during that period. And Uttarayan is considered auspicious because Hindus try to balance life according to nature, according to the occurrences of the universe. And it relates to us that our life as human beings, it's not only us human beings that we have to take into consideration, we have to take into due consideration the environment in which we are living, nature, the creation of Ishwar God in which we are living. And taking into consideration, having learned the knowledge of the, as we say, the movement of the stars and planets within the constellation, appreciating the effect of sunlight on the body, and this is being the most auspicious moment, he departs this body after Uttarayan sets in. That's really the beauty, the marvel of connecting that knowledge to real life, not as an abstract thing. Today we celebrate Uttarayan without understanding the effect, why the sun is considered auspicious, why that change is considered auspicious. Because the early morning sunrise is auspicious in terms of that it revigorizes our body, re-energizes our body by vitamin D. And at that moment, if the question arises, he was going to die, why did he wait for Uttarayan? The time is auspicious. And during auspicious time, it's faster to go over grief. We can move over grief at a faster period. So these are the circumstances, but it requires some deep thinking, some thinking of how, why, and then, as we say, we have to do manan nididyasan, contemplate on the things, put the questions, find the answers, but go on the logic side. Don't be skewed on just what we've heard from people down the line, but try to put the questions to ourselves, find the logic, and then apply them in day-to-day life. I would suggest to people delving into the Mahabharata to pay attention to that. In modern warfare, if we see somebody like Arjun just putting the chariot between the line of two armies, he would have been hit at that point in time and finished. They wouldn't have given him time to take stock of the line of the two armies fighting. But since it was Bhishma leading on the one side and Arjun was leading on the other side, so Bhishma respected whatever his opponent was taking stock of. And this enables Arjun to put the questions to Sri Krishna and the lesson of the Gita to mankind. So things that happen in modern war, if we tried to apply, we would have been more careful. And the battle always was between sunrise and sunset, no battle at night. And today, most of the strongholds are being bombed at night. So it shows at night, because what happens to children and women who are not involved in the war? They're just maimed. And it shows the ethics, even at that point in time, the Mahabharata, it's about 5,000 to 120 years back. That was the level of ethics that people were respecting. And that respect was just because Bhishma Pitamaha was leading the army of the Kauravas. So that's a marvel, a real personality, which we can sit down and analyze and learn so many things for our own benefit and the benefit of the community at large. So if there's any questions, we can just take it very rapidly. Otherwise, we can deal with it. If people have any query, you can just send me the queries on Hindu Center of Atlanta at gmail.com. That's easy, Hindu Center of Atlanta at gmail.com, or on the messenger in Facebook. It's still Hindu Center of Atlanta. Thank you, Dhananjay, for the closing, please.
Thank you, Acharyaji, for your very insightful lecture today. You have uh, certainly pointed out very important thing about the wars happened at the Mahabharata time and at the time, the modern time war, where most of the big attack happens in the night time, and at that time of ethical era of Mahabharata, even though those two opposing armies are standing there, but there were some ethics, and they were complying on it. Uh, we will keep continuing our spiritual learning program every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can join the link shown on the Facebook page. We have other program on Friday for the young adults and kids. Sanatan Dharma Simplified. Kids learn some Vedic mantras and their meaning and learn from the stories. And on every Saturday morning, 10:30 Eastern Time, we have the weekly satsang. So please do join us on these times, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
One Om drop, and we'll close the session of today. Om. Thank you. Namaste.